Hey everybody, welcome back to DeLoreanTECH, and today we're going to be talking about the oil pressure switch in your DeLorean. We're going to talk about how it works, how to identify whether or not it needs to be replaced, and if so, we're going to walk you through all the steps on how to replace it. Let's get started. Okay guys, here it is, the oil pressure switch for the DeLorean. This is the one that reads the oil pressure and activates the oil pressure warning light in the car. So if you need to replace it, this is the one to get. This shouldn't cost you any more than $15, and it should also come with a sealing washer as well. You can get this on DeLorean.com. You can get this from DeLorean Go. I got this from Chris Miles at 88 Miles DeLorean Parts. So if you go to DeLorean.com, you can see that the part here and kind of tells you what it's for. So obviously it reads the oil pressure in the car and activates the oil pressure warning light in the instrument cluster when the oil pressure drops in your DeLorean. This is not to be confused with the oil pressure sensor. That is for the instrument cluster, and that's this one right here. So the oil pressure sender for your gauge. Okay, this is on the other side of the engine. So don't order this one, order this one. So if you're looking at the DeLorean wiring schematic, another name for the oil pressure switch is the oil warning lamp sender. On the DeLorean wiring schematic, it is located right here at 181, and it is connected via a white and orange wire. And if you follow that white and orange wire up, that gets you directly to the oil pressure light here on the instrument cluster. So the function is once pressure drops, that will prompt the oil warning lamp sender to send a current to the oil warning indicator lamp here in the dash. So what does that look like in the car? Before you turn the car over, the oil pressure sensor light will activate, but when you turn the car over, it turns off. However, if that light turns on while you're driving, definitely pull over if you see that light turn on. What does it look like when the light does not work? So I've disconnected the oil pressure switch, and obviously the light does not turn on, but under normal operating conditions, if that light were not to turn on and you turned into the second position here on the ignition, you're definitely going to want to either check the bulb or check the connection at the oil pressure switch. It could be a faulty connection, a dirty connection, or it could just mean the switch is no good anymore. It's always wise to turn the battery off whenever you're doing electrical work in the car, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Our journey begins at the left side of the engine bay, just underneath the car and right behind the catalytic converter. Okay, so here's the exact location of the oil pressure switch on the engine block. So you can see mine is leaking right there. And that means it's time to replace it. Otherwise you're gonna get oil dripping. It's a very slow leak, but I don't want any oil dripping out of my car. So definitely time to replace this. You're gonna need to disconnect the electrical connector on the top there, and then we'll go ahead and remove the switch. All right, so first thing you're gonna wanna do is remove the terminal, and it should come off pretty easily. If it's hard to remove, you could use knocker loose on that, but this looks like it's gonna be pretty easy to get off. There we go. So just remove that first. So from the engine compartment, you can pull the wire up after you've disconnected it. So we'll go ahead and inspect that to make sure it's not dirty, and if it is, definitely clean it. As you can see, this is really kind of melty there. I'm gonna do some repair work on this thing for sure. Make sure we've got a good solid connection there. I may even end up replacing this whole connector right here. So a word of advice here, if you pull the wire through so you can get better access to it, like up here, just note where it actually was routed, and it is right behind this idler pulley right here. So you can see right inside there. So you're gonna wanna pull that out this way like that. Make sure you route it through there again. Now, we have a much better means of cleaning this, so it's definitely easier to address it here. So it's supposed to be an orange and white wire, not a brown and white. So that's a little concerning to me. So it looks like they spliced the wire either to extend it or they cut it and just put a new connector on the end here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this whole thing. So I have confirmed that this, what I thought was a brown and beige wire, is in fact orange and white. It's just that it has become discolorized at this point. So if you pull the jacket back a little bit, you can see that is in fact white and orange. So there you go, guys. It's always good to confirm that you're dealing with the correct wires here, especially if you're using the DeLorean wiring schematic that gives you the colors of the wire. So it is definitely white and orange, albeit it has discolored. Okay, so for those interested, how the switch works is it's just got a little spring-loaded mechanism in there. When pressure builds up in the engine compartment, the spring collapses, that opens up the switch and turns off the light. So that's how that works. So whatever connector you're using, just make sure it all fits. So beforehand, there you go. So if you're gonna do some electrical work like I'm gonna do, just make sure that you duplicate what was already there, especially if you didn't have any issues before. So I cut a piece of this wire here. This is like 18 gauge wire. I'm gonna make sure I have at least the same amount here. Now, I'm not going to speculate, although I'm really tempted to, what happened with this. But what I think it is that they extended this wire for clearance purposes, okay? There could have been some rubbing, or it could have been some burning. Something was a little too hot there, and they needed to extend this to reroute it a little bit so that it would clear those issues. Okay, so here's my new connection. I went ahead and replaced that entire extension here with new wire, new connectors, and new heat shrink. So I'm going to go ahead and reroute the new wire down through the same path that it was down in before. And there you go. Make sure you can access it from underneath. Now the key is you don't want this next to something that's really hot and something moving. You got to check that after you've completed the installation. I noticed as this was all zip tied against this vacuum hose right here, so I'm going to go ahead and re-zip tie that in the exact same location. You can see that there was a little indentation here on that wrap. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's right there and that it mimics what was there before, because I had no problems. All right, so I got my knocker loose here. I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit up in there so I can make sure I don't have any issues breaking that off. So there you go. Knocker loose is your friend. As far as removing the switch, I recommend getting a socket, but I also recommend getting one of these swivel adapters here as well. This will make it a lot easier when you try to reach through and navigate between the catalytic converter and some of the exhaust brackets that are in there. It's very tight. You'll probably also need this when you torque the switch as well, and it does have a torque rating. It's actually 28 foot-pounds according to DMCTalk. You want to put enough torque on that in order to crush that sealing washer. You're also going to need a deep socket 23 millimeter. So obviously I'm doing this at the same time as changing the oil. So I have no oil in the pan right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my socket, and it's going to be kind of hard to film with just one hand here, but I put my socket, my 23 millimeter, and I'm going to attempt to do this with one hand. So as you can see, I have enough room to get my ratchet out here and start turning it. You can put a finger or two here and try to turn it that way. Just kind of holding it in place because it does want to move. As you can see, I'm able to get it. Some oil is definitely going to come out once you start to back that switch off. So you want to make sure you got like a paper towel or something here to catch it. But this thing, this swivel, oh man, this thing is awesome. This thing works great for this application here. Yeah, and you can use a crow's foot or something else in there, but this just works for me. Might work for you. All right, so there it is. I can get it by hand now. I don't have to worry about using the socket anymore. And there it is. It's free. So definitely some oil coming out of there, even though I've emptied it. All right, so here's the condition of the old switch. Now, it wasn't leaking from the crush washer. It was actually leaking from the center right here where the terminal is. This actually moves around freely in there, and it's really not supposed to. It's supposed to be secure, so it's not supposed to be free spinning. So it's actually leaking from in there. You can rebuild these, but it's just probably easier to just replace the whole thing. Now, that's not to say it can't actually leak from the washer location if you do not torque this enough. That can happen as well, but in my case it was leaking from here, which is the more common leak. Okay, so there's a lot of good discussion here on DMCTalk about the oil pressure sensor warning light torque specs. So the conclusion here, and there isn't an official torque spec in the workshop manual, but 28 foot-pounds seems to be the number that everyone here on DMCTalk is pointing to. And they also recommend not to put Teflon tape or any type of pipe thread compound because the sensor needs to be grounded. And if you do that, you might interfere with that. So 28 foot-pounds seems to be what is recommended here on DMCTalk. I'm gonna go ahead and go with that. Go ahead and put the new oil pressure sensor in. Just make sure that's very clean in there and clean out as much of the threads as you can as well. You wanna make sure that there's nothing in there that will interfere with being able to set this to the torque spec we're gonna apply here. Here's the new one. Make sure the crush washer is on there before you put it in. So we're just gonna go ahead and thread it in by hand for now. We're just gonna place it in like that. Make sure you got your crush washer there so it clears. If you can set it around that little groove in there, that might actually work. That way it doesn't fall out of place. Okay, so let's go ahead and hand tighten it. Now don't hand tighten it from the terminal. You don't want to damage that inadvertently. We got a socket, 23 millimeter. Just gonna go ahead and put that over that and just kind of do it by hand. Checking that crush washer, make sure it doesn't get in the way. Yeah, it's going in there well, so you can definitely take a look at it. Make sure you don't accidentally damage the terminal on top. So everything is going in pretty well there. And then just take your extension and kind of just move it over the bracket right there. Then you'll be able to put your torque wrench on here and you'll have enough room. Just set your torque wrench to 28 foot-pounds. Find it difficult to do it that way, you can also bring the socket and the extension out of this and kind of go in from this angle here. This might actually work as well. Alright, so I was able to get it. It was very impossible to film it, but I was able to torque that to the 28 foot-pounds, and as you can see, that washer's definitely crushed in there. You may find yourself in a situation like this with the terminal on the other side, and so what you're going to want to do is take a little 7 millimeter and you can actually move that terminal to this side over here. So we don't want it on this side. You're just too close to the catalytic converter right here. So what you can do is just kind of move it with a little 7 millimeter and that should take care of it. Just move it over a little bit at a time until you're about, well, maybe 2 o'clock. The way your wire is not stretching across the switch. And about like right there might be perfect. Step is you want to take your wire and your connector and connect it to the terminal right there. There we go. We're in. So there you go, guys. Now back here in the engine compartment, before we test the light, we do want to make sure that there's not a whole lot of slack down there with that wire. So pull the slack up from about like right here. You're going to want to zip tie that probably to this vacuum hose here that I have a flex loom tubing on. And you might want to put some flex loom down below as well. I'm going to finish it off with that because it is pretty close to the, obviously the engine block, but also the catalytic converter, and things just get kind of hot down there. So you don't want a lot of slack there, but of course you don't want to pull the wire off the terminal either. Yeah, right there. So you can eliminate some of that slack so you don't have like a lot of wire hanging, because you've got a belt pretty close to it. And went ahead and zip tied it right here. You can see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and turn the battery back on and test it out. All right, so go ahead and key in the ignition second spot, and as you can see, the oil warning lamp indicator light has turned on, which means our connection is fine. The next test is to start it up. So I've got to put the oil back in the car. I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll take this for a test drive. All right, so I just filled it up, took it for a test drive. Lights on. You turn it over. Turns off. No issues. It's working as intended. Now I just gotta check for leaks. And no leaks. So there you go, no leaks. But you're gonna wanna take a look at this over the course of the next several days and weeks just to make sure you achieved a tight enough seal right there. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video.